Hey everybody, this is Rob and Jordan, and we are back for Archangel Inc. Live number 37 this evening. Jordan, how are you?
I am great. How are you doing tonight, Rob?
Good. I am looking forward to touching on some of these fun questions. Our topic tonight is going to be common self-publishing questions answered. So as folks know, we are a self-publishing service provider, and so we get a lot of people who come to us who are either looking to work with us or who are just interested in taking us up on our offer of a free consultation and kind of learning a little bit about self-publishing. And we see a number of questions pretty commonly. So wanted to kind of cover some of those and just dive in and expand a little bit and, address some of the basics for folks out there who are thinking about publishing or maybe have their book out already, or who have their book written already, but are not really sure about next steps. So it's kind of the goal here. Anything that you wanted to say to start things off, Jordan?
No, the only thing I wanted to add is that it's one of those things, there's a lot of questions that come up as you're starting to do these things. So, no matter which process you're in, Rob and I've probably been there at some point. So, if you are watching this now or watching this later on, feel free to just jump in at any point and let us know if there's any additional questions about that specific thing. We really tried to, when we were making up these questions, we tried to drill down as much as possible and not make them so overarching, but at the same time, like, it's hard for us to know exactly what questions are going to come up because there's always going to be things that come up. So at any point, just let us know. And then we'd be happy to tackle any of these more. I know we probably say that a lot, but we are happy to jump in and dive in and answer it a little more deeply if needed.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully if anybody is out there and has questions along the way as we are chatting and participating here tonight, feel free to drop them in. We can always do our best to answer on the live stream too. So first question that is most common, Jordan, and that is, how much does it cost to publish a book? I don't know what it's going to cost, Jordan. How much is it going to be? Tell me.
Oh, it's, unfortunately, Rob, with so many of these questions and so many questions that people have, it depends. It depends is probably the worst answer, but at the same time, it really does. So to answer this question, depends on how deep you want to dive, but really what you're looking at and how much does it cost to publish a book? It depends on what you already have gotten done and what you're comfortable doing yourself. So if you happen to know how to edit really well, even editing is tough because we really shouldn't be editing our own books. But say you wrote a book and you are a really good editor and you know a lot of the stuff on formatting, marketing your own book and doing all those things yourself. If you know how to do them or want to spend time and potentially money to learn those things, you could potentially learn all those things yourself. Or if you do have a lot of time, you could really delve in and learn every step of the process yourself. That is a possibility. The longer I've been in this field of self-publishing, the more I've learned myself. Now, there are some things we've talked about before that I'm not going to touch. I'm not going to design my own book cover. I'm not a designer. I just don't have the eye for that, nor do I have the patience to learn that. So for me, I'm going to always have someone design my book. Formatting the same way. I get really frustrated when I'm going through and formatting a book. If I was going to do that, I don't even bother. I have formatting trouble even on Word. So I think how much it costs really depends on what you're comfortable with and what your pre-existing skill sets are and what you're really willing to. I think the real question is, how good of a book do you want to have? Because you can end up spending a lot on editing and formatting and getting the best cover in the world. And you could end up spending a lot of money to make a really, really good product. It just depends on what you're looking at and how far you want to go.
Right. Yeah, it's a good question, and it's tough because, again, this is one of the paramount ones. The first answer I would say is it doesn't cost anything if you don't want it to. Potentially you can go and do everything yourself, as you mentioned, if you have a handful of different skills and capacities, and you're interested in going the free route. You're interested in doing print on demand through a publisher like Amazon that doesn't require any upfront costs. It doesn't need to cost you anything, but depending on what you're looking for and what your budget is, what your skill level is, what your goals are for the book, you may want to spend more. It's sort of, I've in the past I've been pretty into bicycling, and it's like, okay, how much does a bicycle cost? It's like, okay, well, you might be able to get a bike off of Craigslist for 20 or 40 bucks. And that might be just fine depending on what you're looking to use it for. But I know people who literally have bikes that cost $5,000, and for some, it's like, that seems crazy. Like, why would I spend $5,000 on a bike when, it's got 2 wheels and and some spokes, the same as the $40 bike. And let's, why don't I just do that? So the same thing. I mean, you can say, okay, I can do this for free, or I can go to, Fiverr or somewhere like that, spend a couple of gigs, $5 gigs on a cover and, a basic formatting design, just throw it up there and see what happens. And that's absolutely fine and doable. Obviously there are different tiers, different service levels where you're at, again, just budget wise and what you're looking for. You might want to find an editor who's really a specialist in your particular field, or you have let's say a type of book where you have a cover design or something, a look that you're going for, and finding the person to create that could be, could eat up all or most of your budget, depending on what that is. Good cover designs, get them for several hundred, several $1,000s, depending on what you're looking for. So it really depends. But my short answer for people is it can cost, $0 if you're totally, at a shoestring budget and want to do it on your own. There is no dollar barrier to entry in that respect. It's just where you're at and what your tolerance is really for spending on various aspects of production and production assistance. You can also, again, even beyond production, if you want to in-house publishing on it, on your own book. So that means having a print run, that's going to require some upfront cost, but it's also going to potentially save you money over time, depending on how much how many copies you end up selling. If you have to spend $500 or $1,000 to get, some copies printed off, but you can make more, maybe that's better than taking the reduced margin from a print-on-demand outfit. So anyway, tough question, and it is it depends answer, but it's a good one. And anything else that you wanted to share on that?
Yeah, am I still here? Can you still hear me right now?
Yeah, I lost you for a moment.
Yeah, it kicked me off. I don't know why. Okay. I think our internet connection is getting worse here, but that's fine. We're changing places soon, so we'll have a brand new refresh. The only thing I wanted to add with that, Robin, you may have mentioned this at the end, and I didn't hear whether or not you said it, but I think it's important to consider too. You could potentially get lucky with finding someone on Fiverr or Upwork to do some editing. There's obviously some really good people on those platforms.
Right.
But I do think the old adage of you get what you pay for really ends up working out not in your favor more often than not. If you're only going to pay a couple $100s to have someone edit your book, are they going to be able to spend the time and do a full developmental or actually go through and line edit your book? Right. I mean, maybe they're really cheap and they're really good. And maybe they're just starting out. I think that's something to consider too. But if you're thinking about value in that way, you could get lucky and find someone really good, or you could just make sure that, you have a vetted editor that is going to be able to go through and do your book. You wrote a book and you want to make sure it's the best as possible that you can make it, and spending on editing is definitely part of that process. So.
Right. Great point. And we can jump on to the next one here. Cool. How do I make my book available on other platforms, or we should say on any platform, since we haven't talked about any platforms in particular? What are your thoughts on that, Jordan?
So you always want to make it available on Amazon, and you can do that right by going to the Amazon KDP dashboard. And you can log in there and sign up and upload a book. We even have a resource on the whole process of what it looks like to upload a book. I did a screen share of that and went through line by line on how to do that. So we have that resource available. So uploading on Amazon, that's your first goal, is to get the book up on there and make sure your launch process includes that. As far as getting it up on other platforms, there's multiple methods. You could, if you wanted to, upload your book directly onto platforms like iBooks and Barnes & Noble and all of that. Or you could just decide to go with a program like Draft to Digital. That's usually what I use when I want to put the book out to multiple areas. Now, you always want to do Amazon separately, because even Draft to Digital says that, they say, hey, like, we offer upload to Amazon, but just do it on their platform. Sometimes it messes up. You want to be able to control things on Amazon through the platform to do ads and all of that. But for all the other platforms, I haven't had any issues with using Draft to Digital to do that. It's a pretty straightforward process. You go in, very similar in some ways to uploading on Amazon, but they will distribute your ebook out to those other platforms and make it available.
Yep. Yeah, places like that, or Lulu's another one. These are aggregate distributors. So basically, they take your file and then dispense it out, put it on the bookshelves of all those other platforms. And so, instead of you putting it on 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 different distribution channels, you put it on one. They take a small percentage for the service of putting it out there. But in exchange, you get to not have to manage a dozen or however many different dashboards. So one thing to note, another option is Ingram Spark. Ingram Spark does require for print editions that you have your own ISBN, and we will get to that in a little while. So that's another potential cost, but an ISBN is International Standard Book Number, I believe. And, those will, you can make it available through the various distribution channels that Ingram Spark partners with, but there may be a cost associated with it.
Yep. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but yeah, as far as Draft to Digital goes for the ebook, that is free for you to do that. I think you mentioned that they do take a percentage of that because they are distributing it. But yeah, as far as you going and uploading your book, you can do that for free.
Right, exactly. So you don't have to go in and say, hey, here's $20, put it on the shelf of all these other ones. They say, hey, we'll do it. No problem. But for every, $10 you get, we're going to take $1 off the top, or, whatever their current percentage is, depending on what sort of account you have. Yep. Cool. Okay. So next question. Can I still make money publishing on Amazon? Jordan, is it worth it? Should I even bother publishing on Amazon?
Yes, I think so. I think it's definitely, we talked about this before, the Kindle gold rush in some ways is over. There are so many ebooks on the platform that you really, as a self-published author, you do need to make sure that you stand out. Following a lot of the tips that we offer and a lot that you can find elsewhere, make your book the best that you possibly can make it. And yeah, you can still stand out. You can still sell your book. But yeah, as far as making money directly on Amazon, that's definitely harder. I would say that even a couple of years ago than it used to be. It's hard to just put an ebook out and hope to make the kind of income to support yourself to be able to do that. Now, there are people, like, again, you could put it out there and get lucky. You could do a lot of work and really hustle. And also, have success that way. But as far as just, if we're saying for the average person, the everyday person that's going to put a book out there, yeah, you can still make money, but really you need to focus on the beyond. So what your book is doing for your business or your platform. We talk about that a lot too. If your book is helping to build your platform, then that's definitely a valuable piece. And then you can make sales beyond that. Right.
Yeah, it's sort of a general diversification pattern. Any financial analyst would say, hey, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Don't put all of your income into the hands of Amazon, the single platform, and especially not a single title on Amazon. It could be selling really, really well today and for the next several months, but there's no guarantee that that's going to be the case forever. It might not be the case in 6 months. It might not be the case tomorrow, for all we know. So definitely want to, as you said, kind of use it to build that platform, leverage the distribution that Amazon has, and the fact that Amazon is a buying platform, that almost all books are there. The vast majority of sales happen there, especially for independent and self-publishing authors. So take advantage of that, and at the same time, use it to enhance your connection with the people that you're trying to build a followership with. And again, that goes to, what's your goal? Can I make money publishing on Amazon? Yeah. Are you looking to make a full-time income? Okay, so that's one set of strategies and questions. Another would be, can I make any money at all? And then, if you already have a full-time job, if you're really not interested in building that platform, then that's another set of strategies and tactics that you might use. It might still be useful, might still give you money and give you a wide distribution network, give you access to readers on the other side of the world, and that can be really cool and valuable to you. But what is your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? How are you trying to make use of this book? What's your end goal? What would constitute a good outcome for you? And then you can use that to kind of inform whether it makes sense or not to publish on Amazon. Most of the time it does. Sometimes it doesn't. And then depending on again, what you're looking for, how you're going to go about publishing. Is it going to be the first in a series of books? Are you going to invest in an ad campaign? Are you going to, again, drive people over to your email list, to your website? Are you going to use it as promotional material for a particular product that you offer? All these different things potentially could be ways that that allow you to make that full-time income from a book or from a series of books that aren't necessarily all about, hoping that Amazon sales cover all of it.
Yeah, and I think it's valuable just to remember too that having a book is a really good part of building your brand and building that foundation. Whether you're a business or whether you're just an author yourself, it definitely can help you expand just to have a book written about something. You automatically gain a little bit more credibility than maybe you otherwise would have had.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an authority building experience potentially, depending on lots of different things, but you can use it to establish yourself, and that's very powerful.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So next question we get sometimes: do I even need an editor? Come on, I'm a native English speaker. I've written before. I was really good in high school English. I help my friends whenever they need me to proofread something. I've got a book out there. Should I get an editor? Why bother? It could be really expensive. I don't want to spend the money. Do I really need one?
Such a hard question to answer, Rob, but for the most part, yes. Do you need an editor? Yes. I mean, not hard at all, right? Like, it's one of those things. I will say it's hard because yes, it does cost money to get a book edited, and I definitely can relate to that. Especially when I was a first-time author and really looking through the finances. Why am I even doing this? Is this really worth it for me? Like, is this really going to help move my website forward and my business? Like, is this really a good decision? When you're factoring in like editing costs, it does get really difficult. So I definitely can resonate and relate with people that are asking that question for the first time. Because on the one hand, you're like, hey, I wrote a book. I don't know if I necessarily have the time or the finances to get an editor and to put that time in. Right. With all that being said, it's definitely, if you're going to do anything for your book, it's extremely valuable, because if you're going to launch your book on Amazon and hope to get good reviews, hope to get good sales, the book needs to be edited. So it's one of those things. If you at the end of the day are going to say, nah, I'm not going to get my book edited, well, maybe change your game plan around, and instead of putting a book out there, put a series of blog posts. People are a lot more forgiving on blog posts. I don't personally have an editor look through my blog posts. Now, I use a program called Pro Writing Aid that's very similar to Grammarly, that I think for me is good enough for blog posts. I think it certainly would be valuable to have an editor or some kind of proofreader other than me going through those. But for me, hey, I'm putting free content out there. I don't think anyone expects it to be this super high polished, but it's different when you have a book out there. When people have a physical book or an ebook in their hands, they expect it to be really good and, edited, have the fluff edited out, have grammar issues not present. I just think if you're really going to try to really dive in and spend the time and the money advertising and marketing and all that stuff you're going to do, it's extremely valuable to make sure that inside content is as good as you can make it. I know we say that a lot, but editing is just a major part of that process. So like I said, I can understand why people have that question, but it is very highly valuable.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a good point. It's good to empathize with it when you're starting out and you're trying to figure out, okay, what's my budget? What do I have here? Is there a proof of concept? Yeah, I think one strategy, like you mentioned, is you can put it out there for free. You have a series of blog posts potentially, and then compile it later. So if you actually get people to read you and engage with you a little bit, you can maybe refine your content, refine your thinking on various subjects. If you do that, but if you have a book, there is an expectation that it's not hastily put together, that it's deliberate, it's well designed, it's well crafted, and then also you are subject to competition in the marketplace when you're doing that. If you have a blog, an unpaid blog out there, maybe there's other competitors, but you're not necessarily fighting for people's dollars in the same way. Mm-hmm. And so if you have an editor, you have somebody who is, trained and skilled and on your side, hoping to make it as strong as possible so that when your eventual customer finds it, they are satisfied with it, and that there aren't big open holes for your competitors to come in and say, can you believe what that guy Rob said? Like, look at his book, totally full of typos, couldn't even bother to put something together that is coherent and makes sense. Go with me. The people, the author in his genre, the competitor who actually knows what he's doing. So, you want to be mindful of all of that. And again, it's just bringing on somebody who has your best interest at heart, who can help you put that best foot forward. And again, going back to that first question, how much does it cost? Depends on your tolerance, depends on what you're looking for. Generally, we do recommend editing as a pretty important aspect of it. There are some things that are more difficult to do on your own, and other things which are a little bit simpler to do on your own. Editing is one of those things that can be a little bit more difficult to do on your own, and having an outside set of eyes on it can be really advantageous.
And I think as a final piece for that, Rob, I think, if you're not sure, I think you definitely reach out and get help. Ask someone to do a review of your manuscript, or if it was just one chapter, and just to see what you're looking at as far as editing. There are people out there that will do that, as a service, and I think that can be particularly helpful, especially if you're really not sure. To reach out to one or a few of those folks, and that can be helpful as just to get an idea, because it's really hard to be objective as the author.
Yep. No, I think that's true. And I will mention as well, not strong arming anybody, but we do offer free assessments. So if you wanted editing, even if you're not sure that you want to work with us, you can, take a little sample over. We'll send it back to you and just give you an idea of the sorts of things that editors would be looking for, and structural contents or structural elements potentially within your book for you to be mindful of if you are planning to still do it on your own.
Yep.
Cool. Next question. How many pages or words should my book be? I don't know. I don't know, Jordan. I want it to be long, maybe, but I don't feel like saying that much, and I feel like I'm blathering on, or everybody else is writing really short things, but I have so much to say on this topic, and is it going to be a problem that my book is really long? How do I make sense of this?
I think it's a great question, and I think it definitely relates to what your goals are. If you are writing a super long book, you're going to have to look at costs that are factoring into that too. The longer your book, potentially, the higher the cost is going to be for editing, formatting, and all of that stuff. So that's a consideration. But if you're just wondering, in general, how long should my book be? I think it could be. It depends. I mean, there are a lot of successful books out there that are just in the 20,000 word range, that have really good cut down content. Some of my first books are in that range, and they do well. And I think it was because I had an editor that went through and really cut that down and made sure it was saying what it needed to say. Because you can have 20,000 words of garbage, but if you have 20,000 words of really good content, and who knows what my books are really, but it's a mix between the two. But anyway, if you have 20,000 words of good stuff that people are, that really help people drive the point home, and it does what the book advertises it's going to do. If people are reading the title and reading your book description, okay, this is something I'm interested in. If your book delivers, they're not going to care whether it's 15,000 words or 50,000 words. They're going to care that they got something out of it. And I think that's the important thing to consider. Can you deliver on the promise based from your marketing in 15,000 words? Now, in some cases, maybe you can, but in other cases, you need books to be a little bit longer. Right. For me right now, in my genre, I'm writing in the personal development, mostly in that niche. I'm shooting for, when I write a book, I shoot for around 40,000 words now, just because I want it to be meatier. That's kind of what I've been doing, and I find that to be good. And there are still some people that will read that and say, hey, this was a really good short book. And I'm like, short is twice as long as previous ones. Come on, man. Give me a break there, But I think just, there are, if you think about the books that are 80,000 words long, how much of the end of that content is really necessary. I feel like, there are times when I just get to the end of a book, I'm like, this isn't really helping or delivering on the promise anymore. Mm-hmm. It's just fluff to make it a longer book. Yep. Or, there's 50 pages of, links and stuff in the back that maybe aren't necessary either. So I think just analyze that. You don't want to put a 5,000 word book out there probably and sell it for $10 to $15. People probably aren't going to like that. You're probably not going to be able to get what you need to get across in 5,000 words. You're going to get reviews and people are going to say, yeah, this could have been a blog post. Like, I don't know why I bought this. I feel bad about buying it. But yeah, just think about those things as far as book length.
Yeah. Jim's in the audience. Jim, thanks for stopping in. Hi guys. Totally agree. If the book delivers, people will stay and read no matter how long or short. Yeah. I mean, so my answer to that is your book should be precisely as long as it needs to be to accomplish your goal. So, I
would have said that, Rob, but people would have been like, come on, Jordan, give me more.
Right. And I agree. I mean, your elaboration I thought was really good and really helpful. It can shift, it will shift over the years. I would say the expectation for a long time was that, a book should be 50, 60, 70,000 words, first getting into self-publishing, and people were doing 10 and 15 and 20,000 word books. And it was actually doing really well because people were saying, hey, there's a sense of accomplishment. It only took me a few hours to read this and get through it. And it's punchy, it's actionable, it's to the point, again, in a lot of the genres that we work in. And that's really good. I think over time it started to shift kind of in the direction that you're describing for your own projects, where it's like, I want it to be have a little more heft, a little bit more substance to it, take a little time, let the topics breathe a little bit, explore them a little bit more deeply, maybe not be so much of a cursory exploration of things, but really kind of dive in. But yeah, at the end of the day, if you people will be dissatisfied if you are either cutting out necessary and important information to convey the book just because you're trying to reach an arbitrary page count or word count, and they will also be dissatisfied if you are doing the thing that you might have done back in grade school, where you're typing in double space and adding on extra words and adding additional clauses and so forth to reach a certain word count. Don't do that. Make the book really, really good, as good of a book as you can. And again, this goes back to potentially having some outside help. If it becomes obvious to your editor, to beta readers, to other people that there are glaring omissions, things that you really need to address and shore up, you can do that. Or like, hey Rob, chapter 6 totally unnecessary. He said basically the same thing he said in chapters 4 and 5. Get rid of that. You can do that. Sometimes it's more helpful to start longer and then pare it down. It's easier to get 20,000 great words out of starting with 30 or 40,000 than starting with 21,000. And it just gives you a little bit more flexibility. But yeah, at the end of the day, there is no there is no hard and fast rule about how long it should be. Keep an eye on what the conventions of your genre are, and keep an eye on your own goals and what you're trying to accomplish, and that will be helpful in determining, okay, this book is complete. This is saying what it needs to say, and I'm satisfied with it.
Yep.
Dale is commenting here. Dale, good to see you. Do you know what tomorrow is? Tomorrow is Friday, everybody. This is an ongoing joke about Rebecca Black. So make sure to check that great video out. Music video from back in the day. Thanks, Dale. Jim also mentions, bear in mind, people are reading less nowadays in length. Self-help needs value first and foremost. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So and I think that's why things have kind of did start to shift over to being shorter and follow the needs of your audience, follow the needs of what people are doing, and what your genre is doing. Sometimes it makes sense to buck that convention. Sometimes it makes sense to adhere to that convention. But again, at the end of the day, having your book be precisely the length it needs to be for you to convey the message that you want is going to serve you best. Cool. All right. Let's see. Moving on. Number 6. Do I need an ISBN number? I've heard of ISBN numbers, Jordan. What the heck is that? Why would I need one? Is it costly? Is it confusing? What's going on there? Help me.
So yes, you do need one. And you said what it stands for earlier. I don't even know. But I don't remember what you said. International something?
International Standard Book Number.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I don't even know what that meant, but it's, yeah, you do need an ISBN number for your print book. You do not need one for your Kindle edition. When you're uploading your book to Kindle, it actually asks you if you have an ebook ISBN, but it will say in the notes there that you don't need one. Amazon assigns their own identification number, the AZIN, Amazon something.
Serial identification number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it. Well, you're on these.
I'm trying to keep up with the acronyms.
Okay, yeah, you got it. But yeah, you do need one, but you don't need to necessarily pay for one. When you're uploading your book into KDP print, you can get your a free ISBN, so that's an option. Rob, do you want to talk briefly about the, whether it's valuable and it's necessary to buy your own?
Yeah. So you can buy it, depending on what country you're in, you may have access to them for free. I believe Canada makes ISBNs available at no cost for residents there, for citizens.
Way to
there.
go, Canada.
Yeah, so it's pretty sweet. There may be other countries as well in which that's the case. But you can get it in the US from an agency called Bowker. And is it worth getting one on your own? I would say in most cases, no. Don't bother when you're just starting out. Now, if you know that you are going to be printing on on other platforms outside of Amazon, then you probably will require it. Now, if you go, and that depends. If you go to someplace like Lulu, they will actually provide you with a free ISBN. But similar to KDP Print, when you're creating a print edition, it will be assigned to Lulu. Lulu will actually be the publisher of record as far as that ISBN is concerned. So if somebody looks up that ISBN and says, hey, I really want that book, and here's the ISBN number, they say, great, that book is published by Lulu and it's written by Robin Jordan, which is fine. It may or may not be a concern for you. In our case, for our clients, we do have Archangel Inc. ISBNs. We make them available, and they're welcome as well to purchase their own ISBN if they want to create their own imprint or, just have their own brand. So you might say, hey, this is going to be a publication from Jordan Ring Publishing, and purchase your own ISBN. So people look up Jordan Ring and, they'll see your titles, but also potentially other books that you've published. So people look up Archangel Inc. on Amazon, they'll see a number of titles that are written by me, but also titles that we have been involved in the production with. So it could be good from a branding and marketing perspective. But it is an added cost. I believe the last time I checked, it was $125 for a single ISBN. And the price does go down if you start buying in bulk. I believe 10 of them are $500 or $600, somewhere around there. You can get, I think, 100 for, $1,000 or something like that. And then if you're buying more than 100, the price goes down even further. So you may or may not need it. I would say in most cases, if you are publishing on KDP print, then you can always update it later. You can purchase one later and republish it. But you don't necessarily want to add to that question like we had at the beginning of the live stream here. How much does it cost to publish a book? Well, if you purchase your own ISBN, you might be adding that additional expense there, $125 or however much, depending on how many ISBNs that you are looking to buy. So it's useful, it's helpful potentially, but not strictly necessary is my general recommendation.
Yep, cool. I agree. Cool.
Yeah, good deal. All right, moving on. Is spending money on ads the only way to market my book? Can I market my book through other means, Jordan?
I think it is important to remember you do not have to spend money to market your book. Now, there are certainly avenues that you could potentially do well. We talked in our 2 previous videos here about Amazon ads and how you can set those up and potentially benefit. If Amazon says, hey, this book is great, and starts displaying your ad, and people go to your page and are buying it, Amazon wants that. They want you to do well on their platform so that they can do well. But yeah, if you aren't willing to jump into that yet, especially if you did a lot of the stuff more DIY, you figured out a lot of stuff. You said, hey, I put this book together. I haven't spent money yet. I don't know if I want to jump into ads right away. Yeah, certainly there are things you can do. There's a whole list of things that you could do without spending money. I think it's just a time investment. Do you want to go reach out for guest post opportunities? you want to get on podcasts? And how many contacts do you already have that you could potentially do that? You could just start sending emails to people if you really wanted to just get down and dirty and hustle. Just let people know your book's out, have conversations with people, get people on Zoom calls and do that. Certainly there are strategies for doing that. I'm not saying just spam everyone and do that. But what I'm sharing is that there are a lot of ways that you can just talk about your book and share about it without resorting to just ads.
Yep. No, great points. By the way, Jim has a question. Can you use Amazon ISBN on other platforms, for example, Ingram Spark? And that's a great question, Jim. No, you cannot. If you purchase your own, you are permitted to use it cross-platform. So you can have an Archangel Ink title that is made available through KDP Print and through Ingram Spark and through various other distribution channels potentially. But when you use Amazon's ISBN, just like when you use Lulu's assigned ISBN, you are locked into their platform. So you can't say, hey, Ingram Spark, here's my ISBN that I had for this book, and please make it available. They're going to say, nope, sorry, you're not Amazon, so you can't do that. That's actually not even your title. It belongs to Amazon, even if they are giving you royalties for it. So great question. Jim also says Amazon ads video #1 was great. Looking forward to catching up on video 2. Thanks. Yeah, AMS ads. He also says as a shortcut as opposed to Facebook. So yeah, I think that's good. They have different purposes. When you're actually up on Amazon and trying to sell your book, then Amazon ads are probably the way to go. It's built in. You have that sort of feedback mechanism like we talked about before. And Facebook doesn't like to send people off of their platform. They are not a marketplace and they don't want people leaving. They want you to stay on Facebook for as long as possible. And so something that's going to drive them away from Facebook is not going to be as prioritized as something that's going to keep them native to Facebook, the users, that is. So great questions.
Rob, I want to say one more thing with the spending money on ads. I think another really important thing to mention is the importance of setting up your own platform and building out your own list. Because the more work you're doing, especially if you are eventually going to start spending money on ads, if you could, instead of just spending money on a book sale, you could potentially spend money on a Facebook ad or a Google AdWord ad to pull people into your email list, offer some kind of free content, send them to a landing page. I think that is a better long-term strategy than just bringing outside ads. We're not talking about Amazon ads because people are right there. That is a good platform for ads as far as book sales.
Right.
But as far as outside ads, like I said, some people are going to have success with that, but I think you're better off pulling people into an email list because then you have them until they unsubscribe. You have that attention. If you have 1,000 people on your email list and you're sending an email out, you're going to get a lot more of that connection versus, if you have 1,000 followers on Facebook. If you share a post on Facebook, all of your 1,000 followers, no matter what, are not going to see it. It's just most likely not going to happen.
Right.
And not all your email subscribers are going to see that either, but it's much more likely because it's a more personal one-on-one connection. So at least as of this video, email marketing is still a good way to go. Who knows what can happen, but as far as right now, it's definitely, as far as long-term platform building marketing, you definitely want to be looking into that.
Yeah, really, really great point. When you are selling on Amazon and using Amazon ads, your profitability is really kind of capped, because of the way that Amazon sets up its pricing structure and its incentive structure. Most books you're not going to be making more than about $7, per copy, if you're selling it for $9.99 on and getting the 70% royalty rate. So there's kind of an upper limit to how much you can put into it. Whereas if you're sending people over to your own platform and you do have other higher value offerings, things that are more profitable, that have higher margins, that are more valuable for your audience, then you don't have that same sort of limitation. And you could potentially then afford to invest more into it because, for every customer that you get, everybody that comes into your funnel becomes really captivated by your good work, the more you could be making potentially, $100, product or $1,000 seminar or, whatever it might be. So really good points. Let's see, spending money on ads, the only way to market my book. Yeah, I just want to mimic your sentiments that, there are different things that you can do. I watched a video recently from Dale in which he had on Derek Depker, and Derek, I think, had a really good point. And one of his things, one of his recommendations was play follow the leader. Are there people in your genre that are, have a book kind of similar to yours, or in the field that's similar to yours that are successful? If so, what have they done? Did they go on a podcast tour? Were they able to, reach out to X, Y, and Z, YouTube personality and or blog post or bloggers and submit guest posts, see what they're doing. They've already in a way compiled the list of people to reach out to, and you can say, hey, I know that you that you hosted Jordan before. Well, I also work in self-publishing, and this is what I have to offer. I'd love to talk about it. I'd love to offer a guest post or a guest appearance or some sort of content or something just to reach your audience, because I think I might have something that they would be interested in. And it's a good way to, kind of capitalize on the legwork of what people have done before. And that doesn't necessarily require ad spends. It just requires you paying attention, seeing what the folks in your market and in your genre are doing, and, emulating the patterns of the successful people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. Hope you can does. Jim's asking, hope you can discuss advanced review copies one day, something I'm lacking greatly, no success in email marketing. Yeah, advanced review copies. I mean, we have took a couple of videos, Jim. You may have seen them on the review gathering process, in which we kind of build that list of people who are interested, who may be interested in writing an advanced review for you. So that may be helpful. We also have the Ultimate Book Review Manifesto, which I'll include in the links down below or in the comments down below as well, also in that video. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Yeah, in terms of building that email marketing, yeah, it can be tough, and I think there are different approaches. One thing that I've kind of toyed with recently and seen some people utilize, and that is just being very consistent, like making a commitment. Okay, for the next 60 days, I'm going to create an email list, create content for an email list every single day, and I think that's going to potentially help to clarify what you're about, what your vision and goal is. And it may be a struggle. Maybe think, gosh, what the heck am I going to talk about? I don't know if I have 60 topics in the, in the back of my head or in my back pocket. But what some people who have done it, and I think this is probably true, have attested to, is the more content that you create, the easier it will be to come up with new topics. Also when you get a little bit of reciprocity and some feedback from people say, hey, I thought that was really interesting. That reminded me of this other thing that I read about, or, what do you think about this different idea or this different approach? It can end up giving you grist for more ideas. Even if it doesn't, even if you have very minimal interaction on your email list, and I can certainly attest to that. I know, Jordan, you've described that as well. You might send an email out to several hundred or several thousand people, but 1%, less than 1% of those people might actually reply and say, hey, that was a really good question, or here's my answer to the prompt that you gave me, or whatever. It can be tough. However, in the process of doing that and subjecting yourself to that kind of discipline and that regular practice, you may find that you're forced to think outside the box a little bit, and also learn to read, to expose yourself to new material, because you want to have things to talk about. And all of us are kind of synthesizing agents. We have all these different influences and books and videos and topics and ideas and things that we're interacting with that are affecting us in a unique and particular way that's distinct to us. Not anybody else in the world has your unique set of experiences, and therefore that is going to give you a perspective, a distinct and unique perspective to share. But it's going to be bolstered by you going out and actually exposing yourself to those new things, reading books on a regular basis, consuming other content, creating content, learning from experience. And that gives you things to kind of discuss and work on. And yeah, I can certainly understand and appreciate it's not easy. It is not an overnight success kind of thing. We do talk about that. But if it's something that you've committed to, is something that you've determined that, yeah, this is important to me, this is something that I'd like to do, then stick with it. And, over time, you can start to see, some of those dividends coming in. Anything else you wanted to share on that, Jordan?
Yeah, I was just going to add to Jim. I think you bring up a really good point. You said in the end of your comment, no success on email marketing. I think a lot of authors are in that same boat. I can share that I was a few years back. I had people signing up for my list. I'm like, I don't know what to send them. I don't know what to do for auto follow-ups. Like, I feel like I have some sense, like I want to grow my list, but what does that really mean? I think it was about 2 years ago now, or year and a half ish. I read a book called Newsletter Ninja: How to Become an Author Mailing List Expert, and that's a book by Tammy Labrecque. I was going to try to post that in the comments, but it wasn't letting me on here on this platform. But yeah, if you want to check out that book, and I think anyone listening to this too, Jim, like I said, you're definitely not alone. I read that book and it was a really good, streamlined, hey, you're an author. This is kind of what you want to set your email list up to do. And having a purpose and making sure you're not just writing consistently, but writing the right stuff. And, obviously you want to know your audience and what your whole deal is and what you can offer them. But that book was just very helpful in determining for me, okay, this is the purpose of my email list, at least, because it was a very purposeless thing before. And if you can have purpose to it, then it's like, okay, I'm going to spend time building that, because once I get people in, it's serving a certain purpose as far as my marketing goes. So that book was very helpful. And I mean, there's a lot of other good books on email marketing out there, but this one was just good because it was specifically for authors. And it was like, hey, this is, as an author, this is how you should set it up. So it was good.
Cool. Yeah. And you've mentioned that book before. I've been meaning to look it up. So I will put that back on my queue. So yeah, thanks, Jim. Good questions. And thanks, Jordan, for the recommendation again here. So we have a couple more questions. Actually, we have more than 10. We lied. So maybe we can just kind of try and shoot through it and not delve too deeply on any of these.
Sure.
Number 8, should I do an audiobook right away? Is it okay to wait on creating an audiobook? What do you say, Jordan?
All right, so this one's good. No, you do not have to do an audiobook right away. A lot of authors, when they're first starting out, will just do Kindle and paperback and then eventually do an audiobook. Mm-hmm. For me now that I have some books out, I know the timing and the process, and I do my own recording for those. I put an audiobook out when I launch my book. I try to make that happen, but it's not something you have to do. No, I think it can be very overwhelming as an additional thing to add on to all the stuff you already have to do, that it's not necessary. Now, you should definitely, I would say, consider putting it up there eventually, but no, it doesn't have to go with your launch.
Yep. Agree with that. Excuse me. Agree with that fully. It is going to be, in general, the most time-intensive and most costly part of production. So compared to digital and print edition in terms of formatting. So you, don't put a whole lot of time and effort into it if you're not comfortable with it. If it seems like it's something that you are intimidated by, just bookmark it. Say, okay, I'm not going to think about it for the first couple of weeks, couple of months, whatever it is. And then, make sure to revisit it, because I do think it is valuable ultimately, especially if you do have resonance with your audience, through the digital or print edition, but no need to jump on it right away and give yourself that additional stress or responsibility at the outset. Cool. What should I price my ebook at? How much? What should I do? I want money. I want to make money, but I also want people to buy it. How do I figure that out?
So it definitely depends on value, length, genre. It depends on all of those factors. But as far as launch, for the most part, you want to launch your ebook at 99 cents, your paperback at $9.99, and then eventually you can price your ebook $3.99, $4.99, even potentially $9.99 if it's long, and if it's in a really good, if you're in more of the business genre, I would say that's a good fit. I'm sure some others as well. And then I would say similar answers for fiction there as well. And then eventually your final paperback price anywhere from $12.99 to $14.99, depending on how it's doing. That's generally what I recommend. Price it at that final price a week or two after your launch.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. Good shorthands. The other big thing that I recommend for people is keep an eye out on their what other people in their genre are doing. Like you mentioned, some types of books tend to go for higher, some go for lower, and so being too far out of the range of other people that you're competing with might make you less attractive to prospective readers. The other thing too is it depends on your overall marketing strategy. Are you positioning yourself as a thought leader and someone with kind of premier brand and some prestige behind you? If so, then maybe you don't want it to sell for 99 cents. That may be perceived as undervaluing your content. There are some folks out there who find good success selling, their books for $10, $20 more, depending on the platform. Amazon has its band that it tries to get most book sales or book prices to be in, but yeah, it just depends on what you're going for. But I think your recommendations are really good. Start low and then kind of modulate, somewhere in the middle of the $299 to $999 range for the digital edition, and the print edition, $10 to $20, somewhere around there, 12 to 15, 12 to 16, I think is a good ballpark, just because the way that the pricing or the printing costs tend to shape up. That's an accessible price point, and it still gives a decent margin for authors.
Yep.
Cool. All right, moving on. What is my profit margin on books sold? So we kind of addressed that here. For a digital edition, and we're assuming on Amazon, if it's priced between $299 and $999, then you're going to get 70% of the list price minus the delivery cost. So if you have a very image-heavy book and your file size is bigger, it's going to take a more of a chunk out of that final cost. So, instead of getting, let's say, $7 out of a $10 or $9.99 list price, minus shipping costs or distribution costs, they might take 20 or 30 or 40 cents out of that. So you might actually only get $6 or $6.50 or something. For a print edition, it is going to be, I believe, for KDP print, 60% of the list price after, and then so if you sell it for $10, you'll get $6. But from that $6, they will also debit the printing cost. So if it's another $3 on top of that, your actual royalty, your effective royalty, would end up being, that difference. In this case, maybe $3 out of the $10 list price. They do have different calculators available, so you can kind of test it and see. They actually, I think KDP Print actually has an Excel spreadsheet. So depending on the word count and the whether you're doing black and white or color, then you can determine what that margin is going to be. Which I would say a general decent margin to look at what you want to be making per copy, what authors can expect to be making per copy is probably going to be around the $2 to $4 range, $2 to $5 range. Is that accurate, Jordan?
Yep, you got it. Yeah, as far that, and that goes, that goes for both paperbacks and Kindles, depending on the final price. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Cool. So price accordingly. If you have a big color book, full color book, it's going to have higher print costs, and your margins are going to be lower. So you're going to have to price accordingly. There's going to be some minimum prices that you have to meet a threshold there. But in general, $2 to $5, $2 to $6, somewhere around there is what most authors should be looking at and pricing their books based on. Mm-hmm. Cool. Moving on. These are the bonus ones. So we said 10, but we've got a few more. Do I need a hardcover edition? Yay or nay?
No, you do not need a hardcover edition. Now, I'll caveat that with, if you want one, you definitely could do that. Mm-hmm. If other people in your genre, the books that you're competing against, if they all have hardcovers, maybe you're doing a textbook or something like that people are expecting a hardcover, or I don't know, maybe there's some genre out there that only does hardcovers, then do a hardcover. Right. But I'll share with my book, Rob, I did a hardcover for Volcanic Momentum. Mm-hmm. And just off the top of my head, it was probably around 2% of my overall sales and royalty went to the hardcover. Yeah. Which was very surprising to me. In my mind, I was like, paperback and hardcovers will be split. It's not that much more. Right. Paperback was the best selling out of the options. And then, then it was Kindle and then audiobook. And then, then hardcover was trailing way behind. Wow. Really? Yeah, that's cool. It was fun to do. And I know Dale even did a video where he got my book and showed, what it looks like. And the quality is great from Ingram Spark. Just for whatever reason, like I said, in genre, people are looking for paperbacks, I think, more in the personal development niche than they are those other ones. And I think, like I said, that may change with genre. But no, I don't think it's needed unless your genre demands it, because it is, especially if it's your first book, and you're just adding another potential roadblock there for you. No, just go with the Kindle and paperback first. Yep. I think that's a great general recommendation. Now, the one other caveat that I will add, we have a client who we worked with recently who put out their book and wanted to do a hardcover edition. And they discovered as well that
because of the premium that's attached to a hardcover edition, it was only a relatively small additional markup to do that in color versus in black and white. So if you're thinking about doing a color book already, then in some cases, it may make sense to go ahead and do a hardcover edition as well, because the difference in cost may be fairly small. And if you feel like it's appropriate for your genre and for your title, then then we're kind of looking at roughly the same price point, and you can give that perception of additional value. But really good points about, it seems like when it comes to print editions, people kind of gravitate toward paperbacks, and that's just what people expect. It's a little bit lighter, and obviously a fair bit less expensive.
Yeah, and I'll just share too. I mean, my results obviously are anecdotal. I don't know that is the same across. I'm just sharing just off the top of my head, what I'm guessing as far as my numbers were. It was surprisingly low to me. I was all excited about having a hardcover there, and yeah, I was happy to get it, and I really enjoy the quality. I think it definitely looks good, But as far as if you need to, no.
Right. Cool. Great. Moving on. Do I need a professional book cover? I'm thinking of a recent video that Dale and I were able to work on together, hosted at Dale's channel, and I will include a link a little bit later on. But what do you think, Jordan?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
I don't even know how much we need to delve into that one, Rob. Yes.
Yeah.
You need a professional book cover. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't know what you're doing, you can really hamstring yourself. And so just get something that's going to look professional. It doesn't need to, it doesn't need to be the Sistine Chapel. It doesn't need to be, a work of great and timeless art. It just needs to look good and like it belongs. And you don't want to, cut yourself off at the knees for no reason by having a cover. The first thing that people see, when it comes to your book, that looks like it is shoddily done. So,
yeah, and I'll note there too, if you're thinking about, Canva has really good templates for book covers within their system. But if you're just doing something like that to yourself for a professional book, it's just really hard to make it look like a professional book. If I do, I've done some of these recently where I have built some free giveaways for the people, like free bonuses for the people on my site and on my email list. I said, hey, I have this content, if you'd like it, send me an email, I'll send it to you. Now I did, and Miranda, my wife, helped me make these. I made the covers for those free guides on Canva. If you're doing a free guide, and you have, it just made the most sense for me to do that for free because I'm offering a free guide. I don't need to go to a level of professionalism and to do that. Now I think you certainly could. I'm just saying, as far as my situation and what I have going on, I don't necessarily need to go get a professional book cover done for a free guide or something like that. So I think it just depends. Again, now if you're thinking what we're talking about is Amazon books and having a print book and something like that, and yeah, you definitely need that. I just wanted to add that in there because I think professional book cover for what? I think that was good to add.
And one other note that I will add here, it will also be especially the case if you are just starting out. If you have no other platform, if you don't have people who are already following you and who know, like, and trust you already and who are likely to buy your next project in any event, then putting together something that looks really good and is attractive is going to really help. If you already have an existing audience, like you mentioned here, you're doing some sort of giveaway or something to your existing followership, it's maybe not going to be as important because you already have the credibility and trust among your audience. But if you are, just starting out and nobody's ever heard of you before, put the work into getting something that's going to put your best foot forward.
Yeah.
Cool. Another question sometimes we get, and can I put images in my book? Kindle is a platform, it's a digital platform, and can I have images in there? What do you think, Jordan?
I think yes, you can definitely put images in your book. But just be cognizant of the reading experience for folks, especially in the Kindle edition. Are they going to be able to click on it and zoom in and do that? I think you can have that as an option with formatting, Rob, and you can correct me on that. But just be cognizant of that when you're creating your book. And if you're going to have an image that people have to click and then zoom in on every couple pages, then that potentially could be disrupting to that experience, because they're not reading it on a computer. maybe if they're reading it on a tablet or something like that. But yeah, just be cognizant of the experience. But yeah, you certainly can.
Yep. Great points. A couple of things I wanted to touch on. One, the e-readers, Kindles and Nooks and so forth, they were really designed for print, and that's what they're best suited for. But a lot of them are better. Some of them are full color, like a Kindle Fire or something, so you can see images with a higher degree of clarity. But in general, some of the gray, e-ink style, they're just not going to render as well. As you mentioned, they tend to be a little bit smaller, so you may have to click on them and kind of zoom in and zoom out, so it may disrupt the user experience. So be mindful of that. Also, as mentioned, when it comes to distributing the books through Amazon, there are transport fees or download fees. So if you have a book with a ton of images in it, you're going to increase the download size and reduce your profit margin. So you either have to increase your sales price or accept that your margins are going to be a little bit lower if you elect to have a high number of images and thus a higher file size. Finally, when it comes to print editions, there are thresholds. They require, I believe it's 200 or 300 DPI. So if you have an image that's already sort of grainy, and then you try to put it into a book that's actually going to be printed in a print edition, then just make sure that you have adequate resolution for it. It's not going to be something that you can you just zoom in on and it's going to look great. It will end up looking kind of pixelated and low quality unless you have a sufficient quality starting image to work from. So keep all of that in mind. But yeah, if you want, images can definitely add to a book and can create a reading experience and a learning experience that you're going for. So don't feel as if you shouldn't do it. Just be mindful of some of the limitations on the devices in which people will be consuming it, and modulate your production accordingly.
Cool.
Yep. Good deal. Number 14. What are some things I can do to market my book? So that's probably a big question, but we'll touch on it really quickly.
I just thought of 3, Rob, that I can share. See if I can remember all these. So first off, do some work as far as figuring out who your target audience is, where they hang out, what they're doing, and all of that. Make some notes to yourself and figure out how you can serve them. If you're writing a book and obviously it's on a specific piece of content, talk to those people and ask them for their opinion. Ask them for, this jumps into our next question, ask those people for a review of your book. So that's a potential option. And I think number 2 would be starting a blog and an email list on top of that. Have some place where you're writing your content. It doesn't necessarily have to be a blog. It could be a YouTube channel. It could be your own. It could be your own social media that you're on and engaging with people on that platform. I just think having a place where you can be, that you're sharing things related to your content, is really a really important way to build that foundation. And then lastly, I would say if you enjoy social media, consider joining Facebook groups or potentially starting your own. That's definitely an option to consider. I think as you're considering marketing, and it's something I'm trying to do more and more, really just consider how you can best serve your audience. Ask yourself that question first, and then start to think about different strategies and different ways that you can do that. Yeah. There's 3 for you, and there's a lot more, but yeah,
there's a lot more. So one thing I would say, and great points all across the board. Keep in mind what your own buying patterns are. Presumably if you're writing content, if you're creating content, then you are kind of in the genre or the target audience for people like you. And so what are your own patterns? What does it take for you to consider making a purchase? What does it take for you to consider following somebody, giving them your attention? And then do that. It's a big ask for people to never hear anything from you and then open their wallet if you come in and touch base with them, once a year or every 6 months or something. You can do it, but it's harder than if you have an ongoing relationship with them. And whether that ends up being, a daily email list or, a less than daily email list, a, social media presence, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, podcast, whatever it is, something that's going to say, hey, I like this person. I keep them in mind. They're a part of my regular everyday life. And okay, they have a book out there. I'm ready to support them. I want to see, what they've been working on. So again, just think about what you're doing, the sorts of purchases that you make and what the predicates are for your participation in, in their product, and then try and recreate that. Again, just keeping in mind how you can serve them, and what it is that attracts you to the people that you follow. Try to provide that in turn for the people that you are looking to attract into your fold.
Yep.
Cool. Good deal. And then finally, how do we get book reviews? And it turns out we did a couple of videos about this not too long ago, and we can link to them, as well as the Ultimate Book Review Manifesto. But a couple quick ideas. One, make sure that you are asking for a review in your book, and then two, that you're engaging with your audience and your followership in some meaningful way that makes them want to participate, and hopefully give you constructive feedback. The particulars of it, again, we covered in some of those videos, but those are two ideas off the top of my head. Anything else that you want to share, Jordan?
That's what I was going to say. You just want to ask and make sure it's part of your marketing process. It's definitely not, especially if you are a first-time author, it's not something to ignore. It's definitely something you gotta pound the pavement and make sure you have people that are going to be reviewing your book. Because the worst thing you can do is launch a book and have crickets and no reviews, and then try sending traffic there and doing ads. It's just, all of your actions are not going to be as beneficial if you're sending people to a page with no book reviews and none of that social proof. You need to do some of the legwork yourself up front to make sure that happens.
Yep. Yeah, this is another thing that I got from Derek on Dale's recent stream, which I really liked. When it comes to marketing and sort of the ongoing effort, and whether we're referring to book reviews in particular or just building your followership, sometimes people will say, well, can't you just do it for me? Can't I just hire that out? And maybe you can. It could be expensive for one, because it requires regular FaceTime and effort. But the bigger point is, you're not going to get as much out of it as when you're actually establishing those connections with your audience. The quote, and I love this, that he shared, I think it was a Jim Rohn quote, and that is, you can't outsource your push-ups. So in other words, there's certain exercises, there's certain practices that you're only going to get anything meaningful out of if you are actually doing them yourself. Being able to, again, establish that relationship with people, get that immediate feedback, and get your pulse on what your audience is looking for. Like if you're telling somebody else to handle that, then you're not actually getting that full experience. And so just keep that in mind. Don't just expect that you can set it and forget it. Do work one time and never have it be done again. But instead be prepared for the long march, and make it fun, make it cool, and make it enjoyable, make it something that you look forward to as much as you can. Obviously, some of it's going to be work, but hopefully you're doing something that energizes you, and that energy and that passion and that positive experience will make you more attractive and more interesting to the people that you are attempting to connect with. Yep,
good stuff.
Cool, good deal. All right, well, thank you, Jordan. We covered 10 plus 5 more, so not really 10. But folks, thanks for joining in. Jim, thanks for joining us, and Dale as well. Happy to have folks out there. One other question that I wanted to address that I saw in a previous video, and I won't spend too long on this, and that was asking about that the review function, or the review system that we set up. Is it against Amazon's policies? No, as of right now, everything that we described is not outside of Amazon's terms of service. It could be subject to change later, but as of press time, it's totally fine, as long as you are not, engaging in review swaps, as long as you are not engaging in, paid review solicitation, and as long as you are not making participation contingent on a positive review. Besides that, you're absolutely welcome to contact those people, and they do have the option of making their URLs or public identities available, so you can reach out to people for essentially this function. So you're just taking advantage of that. So that is a great question. Thank you for asking. But yeah, please feel free to follow that advice as of press time anyway.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, Rob, is just, when you're sending the emails out, don't spam either. We mentioned that in the videos. We'll mention it again. Yeah, if someone responds and says, I'm not interested, or, stop emailing me, just do that.
Right.
Pay attention to, you're sending an email on your own platform, pay attention to those spam laws as well. Like we said, people have their contact information. You can contact them, but just be careful about where you store their data and all that stuff too. So.
Yep. Great. Great points. Cool. I think that's all we got for tonight. Thank you, Jordan. Thanks, folks, for participating. Thanks, Dale and Jim, again, for being here and chatting. Always grateful to have some real-time questions. And folks, if you have other ones for the future, we will do our best to address them. And we look forward to seeing you all again on the next live stream. Have a great rest of your night and great weekend, or a great week. Yeah. Take care, everybody.